Hello and welcome to the Auto Guide Show. This week we drive a lot of German vehicles. Toyota goes electric crazy, and we speak to two up-and-coming racers about racing and reality TV. But first, a word from our sponsor. Picture this. You're halfway through a DIY car fix, tools scattered everywhere, and boom, you realize you're missing a part. It's okay, because you know whatever it is, it's on eBay. They've got everything: brakes, headlights, cold air intakes, whatever you need, and it's guaranteed to fit, which means no more crossing your fingers and hoping you ordered the right thing. All the parts you need, at the prices you'll love, guaranteed fit every time. eBay, things people love. All right, welcome back. So kicking things off, Kyle recently drove, well, like I said, a lot of German cars, but we'll start with this one, an X3. Not an X3M, but it's pretty close.
Yeah. So for 2025, the X3 is all new. It's the 4th generation, and it ushers in a new naming convention for BMW trims. So the I that we're used to on the end of things is gone. Not that it was ever on the SUVs. But now this is, so the M50, there used to be an M40i. Wait, yeah, I guess the I's were, dang it, it's very confusing. Anyway, the lower trim is the 30X drive, but this is the M50. So it is the high performance one, and as you kind of alluded to there, it is pretty darn high performance for not being a proper M yet. Like, this is knocking on the door of 400 horsepower because it has the mild hybrid inline 6, and it is quick and it is comfortable. It's a cheat code in terms of fuel efficiency. I was getting better numbers in this than I would in like a RAV4.
That's pretty good. Yeah, it's like I said, its power isn't as much as the old X3M, but with that mild hybrid, does it feel torquier?
Yeah, it's very responsive. Maybe not outright torquier than the X3M, because I think that still had more. But I mean, this is 420 something pound-feet. So yeah, it's also heavy, right? That's the other thing, is this is now sitting at 4,400 pounds. It's 2,000 kilos. Yeah, so it's a chunky thing, even though it's not much bigger than before. And we've gone this long without talking about it. It looks a lot different. I'm warming to the looks. It's very color dependent, and I really like how the back looks. But the front, one of our colleagues referred to it as a capybara, and I can't unsee that now. It's like you've got the teeth and the squinty little relaxed eyes. Yeah, I think it's good. I applaud BMW for doing different things.
So, I see the capybara, but what I see is a cartoon villain. I see two eyes and a big handlebar mustache.
Oh yeah, I see that too. And the villain looks really tired with those lines under its eyes.
But overall, this does look better. It almost looks like it's like actually someone wearing a fake mustache. But
yeah,
it's better than the 3 Series.
Well, I think the 3 is like the last of the old BMWs, where like it's pretty conservative versus.
Oh yeah, sorry, I'm thinking the 4 Grand Coupe.
Yeah. Oh, with the big So the other thing too that I need to talk about is the interior, because the interior is almost more radically redesigned than outside. Almost no switchgear. There's just a handful of actual buttons, and then it's very minimal, but I'm not sure if it's in a good way. The dashboard is just this huge expanse of, in this case, Sensatech, but it could be a fabric knit as well, kind of like the new Minis. But it just ends up feeling a little unpremium. I like the plastic light up crystal stuff. That I actually don't have a problem with, because it lights up really well and highlights certain parts of the interior. The center console I don't mind. It's just, if I'm spending this amount of money, I want it to feel a little more special inside than it does. And so that is the tough thing I'm having with the X3. It drives well. I mean, it's a little too stiff riding, but that seems to be a BMW thing. It's very good on gas. It's fun. Like we said, we're warming to the looks. It's just the interior that I have issues with.
Well, we'll see how future versions of this vehicle come out. Probably have to compare it to something, but yeah, BMW's at least trying to do different things as opposed to just some other Germans that just keep towing the line. And anyway, moving on. So speaking of another German manufacturer and one that did something different, I got to drive the 2025 Tiguan this week, which is kind of weird that it's 25 and it's this late that it's coming out. It will go on sale actually the day you hear this podcast, but that still seems kind of late for 25. I guess it's maybe early for 26, but anyway, this is the all new one. It's the third swing at the Tiguan. The first one was too small, which in hindsight might be fine now with people liking that smaller segment, but back then it wasn't. Then they went huge. They thought, oh, North Americans like big cars, we'll make it massive and put a third row in. And that one did okay, but I think like the Rogue and the RAV4 before it, that there isn't that much of a market for small 3 rows. And the Outlander I know still plays there, but it is also plug-in and it's a whole different sort of world. So this one, they ditched the third row for North America. It's interesting because in Europe, there's the Tiguan, and then there's the 3 row, and I can't remember what they call it. It's a different name. This isn't either of them. This has the wheelbase of the longer one, but the Tiguan name and only 2 rows and rounded or more sleek bodywork.
Oh.
Yeah.
That's not confusing at all.
No. So this is smaller, but it's not as small as it may seem dropping that row. It's less than 2 inches shorter, and it's wider and just a little less high. So this turns into massive third row space or second row space. It may be the best second row in the segment. I sat back there, like the numbers were pretty good. I thought I'm going to try it out. I had so much headroom, so much legroom. The seat cushion's the right height. It's very airy with the panoramic sunroof, and it's got 2 big side windows for backseat passengers. Yeah, it's just, this is a good back row. Drive-wise, it hasn't really changed. It's still got the 2-liter turbo. Powers up from 184 to 201. Torque stays the same. It's a little lighter, so it should be quicker. Maybe it is. I don't know. That's so negligible with how little that difference is. Front-wheel drive models lose torque, which is interesting. But that's only for the Americans because we don't get front-wheel in Canada. 8-speed automatics for all models, and that 8-speed, I don't know. Every time I get into a Volkswagen 8-speed lately, I'm finding the same thing. It's just very slow to react. It's almost, this is a complete speculation, but it's almost like we complain so much about how the dual clutch was jerky and quick. Volkswagen's like, all right, we'll give you a very slow traditional automatic instead. But
we'll make you miss the dual clutch.
But you hit the accelerator, and there's like nearly a second pause till it downshifts, then goes. And it's not turbo lag, it's fully the transmission. Just like, you sure? All right, here we go.
I always wonder if that's just to try and eke out better fuel economy figures in the official tests, but then it hurts us for daily driving.
Yeah, but I mean, who's smashing the throttle in the efficiency test? And I can see sometimes you hit it, you don't mean to hit it that hard, but you put it in sport and it improves a bit. But once you're underway, there is a lot of power, and there I can feel it does feel more responsive. And I mean, this will all go away when the Tiguan Turbo comes out for 26, which is going to be still this year, which is more confusing with the years. And it's going to have 268 horsepower from the 2-liter. And yeah, hopefully its transmission is a little sportier. What makes things worse and is very interesting is no Tiguan for 25 has any sort of manual control. No paddle shifters. The gear shifter's up on the stock now on the steering column. So there's no way you can make it hold gears. You can put it into sport mode and it has the S in the gear you're in, but there's nothing you can do to...
Oh.
Yeah, and it's not even like a low. So if you're going down a hill, because we went down some mountains, you're like, all right, I guess I put it in sport and brake and hope it helps me out. So... But other than that, the interior is very premium, even in the lower trims. I mean, the top trim's got all the headlines with its real oak wood and its Savannah leather and its quilted stitching and ventilation and massage. But I drove the SE, which is in the picture here, and it has these really squishy leatherette seats, and I really like them. They're very comfortable and supportive, and the material on the side's nice. And even the base S has this bamboo yarn and stuff. So Yeah, I think it's well positioned as it is. They've made it better than what it was for the segment. Maybe not better overall for what people, I don't know, depends on your needs, but I think it looks nicer.
Yeah, I think so.
It's more right sized, even though it's not much different in size. And you got a good entry engine, and then you got that turbo coming to go against the few sporty ones like the, I don't know, 650, I guess,
Yeah, the
and
CX-50 turbo and
the
I
Escape.
guess the yeah.
Those are the only two that are non-hybrid. I guess so. And then there is a hybrid coming too. No official word when or what or anything like that, but there will be a hybrid. And I think when that comes too, then you got 3 drivetrain choices in a more right-sized vehicle. So it should be good for Volkswagen. And if it's
Yeah.
anything like the plug-in I drove on the Cupra, should be a good unit. I doubt we're getting the plug-in, but if it's that sort of motor package, yeah, should be good.
Sweet. I'm looking forward to driving it.
Mm-hmm. Moving on, Toyota thought, you know what, we're gonna just drop a bunch of EVs randomly this week. So not even in here is the fact that they've updated the BZ4X, which we knew was coming. Basically, all the updates to the Solterra also got, more range, better power, refreshed looks, quicker charging.
And to be fair, what we're talking about right here is basically all of that stuff in a different body. So Toyota brought back the CHR name after a few years, which is, I didn't realize it was such a missed nameplate, although I guess this is the CHR Plus in other markets, and so that's why it's called that here.
It doesn't stop before. We had the Yaris when the rest of we had the Echo when the rest of the world had the Yaris at first.
True.
And it's weird because, like you said, it's all the Solterra stuff in a smaller body. Yeah, this is the CHR Plus, not the CHR in other markets. So we thought the Trail Seeker that Subaru was going to bring out would be this, and yeah, it's so confusing. It's like Toyota's like, we got this platform and these motors. Let's just start going full 80s GM and see how many variants we can make off of the same thing.
I mean, as a fan of the original CHR, I feel like it was always hobbled because we just never got any good options here, right? We didn't get all-wheel drive, even though other markets did. We never got a hybrid, even though other people did. So now this solves that. It has more power than a GR Corolla, which is kind of funny.
Probably weighs more than a Tundra.
Probably, well, maybe not a Tundra, but yeah, Tacoma. So it looks like it could be fun. I like how it looks. I wonder. It's fascinating, and maybe we'll talk about this in a sec about the other EV. It's fascinating how Toyota is giving us 3 very slightly different flavors of the same EV platform.
I'm telling you, it's GM80s. It's like, the celebrity and all of its twins. It's funny how you said that we never got the proper CHR back in the day. So it's like, here's this funky little CHR. We're not going to give you the good bits. Now they're like, okay, we've addressed all the issues you had with the old one, but now we've made it electric and it's going to be real expensive. It's like, just give us a fun little CHR.
Yeah, that is something I noticed. Some people are talking about like, oh, like it's smaller, it slots in below the BZ, so it should be more affordable. But then I'm like, but it's the big battery pack and it's all-wheel drive. It's going to slot in below the top BZ trim, I assume, but not much below it. It's still going to be near the top of that range. So yeah, I wonder. I guess if you're trying to make this a sportier choice, you might as well just offer it in fewer trims because it's not going to sell as many as BZ.
Yeah, that's like you said. I'm curious where it's positioned and how it drives. Because if it's like a performance EV, more in the vein of the GR Corolla, then it makes sense that it's something different. But you're right. The pricing's probably going to put it right on top in the middle of the BZ4X, which is interesting.
Yeah.
But before we get to more, look, I made the color match your car. We have another car that Kyle drove that I'm pretty jealous I didn't get to spend some time in.
It was interesting. So I drove the 2025 Porsche 911 Carrera Cabriolet. And even though throughout the years I've driven quite a few different variants of the 911, it's never been a cab. It's been a Targa or a coupe all the time. And so I don't know about you, Mike, but I always had this idea of the cab, right? Like it's got the little humpback. It's heavier. All the reviews over the years growing up were like, oh, it's not as good dynamically to drive. I don't think that really matters, especially for the base model. It's slightly heavier. Oh, well, it was really fun having during a week that was both really cold and really warm. So I got to make use of a convertible in its best environment.
Hmm.
Um, it's it's very good. It is almost as well insulated as a coupe in terms of noise coming from outside. You can raise and lower the roof at like 30 miles an hour, so you don't have to worry if suddenly it starts raining. Um, it's barely quicker than before. So this one gets 9 more horsepower. We're now at
Ooh.
388 for the entry level. It feels like Porsche just did what it needed to do to be like, it's 0. 0.1 seconds quicker. We have done the good work. Let's go to lunch. Um, yeah, I really appreciate it now. I never understood the point. I thought the Targa basically did what the cab does, but no, full open air motoring is still different.
388 horsepower is the base engine is kind of funny to think about a 911. But the first 911 I ever drove was a cab. I had a brown one, and it was very similar. I think it was a Carrera 4, but same thing. It wasn't the sport version. But I'm glad you brought up the point about everyone's like, oh, it's not as dynamic. It doesn't this and that. You're not. No one buying the Cabriolet cares about that. Like you're not tracking it. That's why you bought this one. Is
Yeah,
you want performance. You want to be able to rip around when you feel like it with the open air feeling. So you're losing a tenth in the corner off of your favorite canyon road. Like that's yeah. If you really wanted that, you were getting a normal 911, and if you really wanted that, you're getting the GT3. So
yeah,
yeah, this is what it's supposed to be. It's just like the Camaro and Mustang convertibles. Like their point's always been performance, but with open air. It's not meant to be the track weapon.
exactly. And so, yes, this is softer, but it's still a lot more focused than any other convertible you're buying at this price range, right? Like you're looking at big Grand Tourers. So this still feels focused. For 25, there are some changes to the lineup. So the manual is gone in everything except the GT3 and the T. So this is an auto only, although the PDK is so good. And the base Carrera no longer can be had as a Carrera 4. It's rear drive only, which I actually think is fine too. This thing on winter tires never ever felt like it was lacking in grip, and I like the feel of the steering when you don't have a driven axle up there.
I will miss the Carrera 4 being like an excellent winter car and a summer car all wrapped into one. But I mean, you could just go up to an S or a GTS or something.
Yeah, yeah, if you really need it.
Hey, another Toyota electric vehicle. So this is an interesting one because this, like, I think Toyota's trying to confuse us because this is like, here's the third one on the same platform. And this one, we're not going to price like the BZ4X, but we're going to put BZ in its name just so you're not really sure. And we're going to call it the Woodland like some of our other off-road SUVs.
Yeah, we're going to use the Woodland name, which we've used on the RAV4 and the Sienna to mean more off-roady. So I remember getting this and being like, okay, a BZ Woodland makes sense. They've done it. And then I opened it up and I was like, wait, this is a different vehicle. It's not a BZ. It's so confusing. It's Jeep Wagoneer, Grand Wagoneer, Cherokee, Grand Cherokee levels of confusing.
Wagoneer S.
Yeah. It's the Trail Seeker. It's the Subaru Trail Seeker. Well, as my headline says, with Prius face, which is fine. I love that there are more wagons coming to our market, even though no one will call them that. It's, well, anyone who didn't listen to that episode where Mike talked about the Trail Seeker, it's that. It has more power. It has 375 horsepower. It's a dual motor, all-wheel drive EV. Has 260-ish miles of range, and it will just come in one trim. So it will just be fully loaded. Well, there is a premium pack that will add a few things like a big glass roof and some other stuff. Yeah, it's basically that. That's all I can say. And like,
So it's weird because I went to the Trail Seeker debut and Subaru went on and on about how they're building it at their factory and they developed it and this and that. So if that's the case, did Toyota then get a version of it after the fact? And I'm getting strong Toyota Volts vibes here. Oh, vibes, huh? That kind of makes into it. Where Pontiac made the vibe, and then Toyota's like, you know what? I kind of like that one too. We're gonna sell it as the Volts. It's like they took back the slight modification of their car and rebranded it themselves. That's what this feels like.
It's yeah, because this even has X mode with the grip
Yeah.
control or whatever, whereas the CHR does not. It
But
really is
the BZ4X has X mode too, which is strange.
just BZ now. It dropped 50% of its name and it has 50% more power.
So it really is BZ than BZ Woodlands, which is a completely different vehicle. Awesome.
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah.
Totally makes sense.
Don't worry, it's not confusing at all. It's like how technically, while we call it the Crown Signia, there is nothing on that car that says Signia. It's two different crowns.
And the Woodland name, like, yeah, it's interesting because, like you said, it is the more off-roady. So with the Solterra versus the Trail Seeker, the interesting thing is the Solterra and the Trail Seeker either have the exact same ground clearance or the Trail Seeker slightly less. And we're like, shouldn't it have more being like the off-road one? But the BZ was always a little bit lower to the ground, so maybe this will have a little bit more ground clearance. So it sort of like the Sienna, it deserves that name. But yeah, Toyota is really just trying to maximize, I guess, that platform. So
Yeah.
you're gonna wander in now and you'll be like, I need a mid-size compactish Toyota EV, and they'll be like, well, we got 3 for you.
Well, remember when the Crown Signia came out last year and we were like, Toyota has 10 SUVs, what the heck? And then they killed the Venza because the Signia essentially replaces it. It's like, okay, well, they're down to 9. Nope, now they're going to have 11.
For this week.
Yeah.
All right, well, moving on to more German test drives. So you got to drive one of my favorites back in the day, and I'm curious to hear how it still is. I thought this was one of the best, just get in and drive down the long road type cars.
Well, good news. The 2025 Mercedes-Benz E450 is exactly that.
Nice.
I really enjoyed this car. I drove it very slightly after we would submit our votes for Canadian Car of the Year, and this would have been a finalist for me, easy, had I been able to drive it a little earlier. In my mind, this encapsulates Mercedes cars more than the S-Class in my mind, because the S-Class is a little boring. I'm just saying it. This is the right size. It is luxurious and it feels properly special. And it is one of the smoothest driving cars I've driven in years. It has the mild hybrid inline 6, so a pretty familiar thing from Germans these days. But it is so completely smooth on startup that my wife asked if it was an EV. And it's not like it was on battery power. The engine was on. It's just there's no vibration. I don't know how the engineers have done it, but there is not a single hint that an ICE just kicked on in front of you.
That's great to hear, because I drove years ago. I drove the E250. If you don't remember that, engines have changed. They've all grown. Cars have gotten heavier. But that was like what would be is it the 350 or the 300 now for the entry level?
I think it's 350, but I know that they've badged some of the same engines with different numbers depending on the model. So,
but I remember the reason I wanted to drive it was like a turbo 4-cylinder in E-Class. Like, what's the point? Like, E-Classes should be AMGs or back then maybe a 350. Sorry, not a 350, a 500.
Yeah.
So I drove it and I came with the exact same impressions. I was like, oh, like this is so smooth. There's more than enough power even from that turbo 4. And then I drove the 350 with the naturally aspirated 6 in a coupe, and I was sort of like what you said, it's 450. I was like, this is perfect. This is all it needs. I mean, I love the AMGs and they're fun and growly.
Yeah.
But the E-Class I think's not appreciated enough for what it is.
No, such a fantastic car. I also just want to point out that I really like the looks, especially the taillights with the Mercedes logo as the LED signature now, but get it in a dark color because there is this thick, like 2-inch gloss black frame around the grille that looks really strange on lighter ones, but on a dark blue like this, don't notice it.
Yeah, Mercedes is just sticking to the traditional look, just slightly changing it here and there. They're not going full BMW, but they're not also sticking with Audi that's not changing it as much. So I think they're sort of on the right path there.
Well, the new CLA looks weird, but that's a whole other thing.
Yeah. Speaking of looks weird. So Jaguar, surprise, surprise. In news that surprises no one, Jaguar has apparently ditched their ad agency that came up with that interesting campaign that had the world talking, but confused everybody and didn't have us talking about the car or even really Jaguar as opposed to the content of the ad. So, yeah.
I feel like the ad agency did its job. Um, I
Well, it depends what
everyone
Jag
talked
asked them
about
to
it,
do.
right? Yeah,
Yeah.
but I mean, like, the car showed up a month later or something like that. So if you want to launch a campaign, at first I thought it was weird too. It's like, why are you doing this if you don't have something to show? But it was to get ahead of everything, because if you did the entire rebrand and the car at the same time, then the car might get drowned out by all the everything else. And so,
And it still did.
yeah. But I mean, I've had more people asking me about Jag the car than I have in years. So I think they did a good job. Entirely, like, unsubstantiated here. I've just heard through the grapevine that apparently the people in the company, like in Jag, didn't entirely know that what was actually going to launch did. There was some lack of communication, and so maybe that's why this is happening. And I can understand that. You kind of want to be on the same page as your partner for the most important relaunch of your brand in decades. But I still think it did the job of getting people to talk about Jags, and so for that, I don't see a problem.
They didn't talk about Jag. So are you saying they didn't know the car was coming or they didn't know the campaign details?
What I have heard is that the Jag folks didn't know that the campaign was coming in the
Okay.
way that it was, or like when it launched. Like, they found out after it launched.
So how you said you've had more people talk about Jag than they have in a long time. I have too, but not about the car. In fact, a lot of them don't even know a car was launched. I
Oh,
had a lot of people say, like, is Jag getting into like fashion, or are they like releasing some sort of designer like luggage or clothing line? And I was like, well, they already have some of that, but no, that's not what this is about. But yeah, I think it was maybe it was that month delay, but it sort of muddled the message. Then when the vehicle came out, it didn't look real. I mean, it is, but it was so strange. And then we've seen the spy photos, but they haven't followed up with the here's the polished production. This is what it's going to look like. So
yeah,
you're still kind of just like wondering if this giant box that could be really cool or could not, like what it's going to be.
yeah. They've had a few things in the UK where it's shown up at big social events with celebrities, and even there, it doesn't entirely look real. I think it's the paint options, right? Like, they're so saturated that you're just like, what? Did you
Is that a
guys
clay
just
model?
Photoshop that in? Yeah, but yeah. I mean, you're right. They need a production one soon.
Yeah. So yeah, we'll see if the new agency is coming. This is reportedly, but
Yeah,
um, yeah, even if everybody knew what was happening, I don't think anyone expected quite the response they got. I mean, I think in good too, like they got a way bigger response, but I also don't
yeah,
think they thought it would be this. I don't think it should have been negative. It was because a lot of people are negative because of people just aren't
change.
open. Yeah, and they're
Change is
not open
bad.
minded, and they saw like the colors and the campaign and whatnot. Like that didn't bother me. It was just it confused people. Like that's
Yeah.
what I had a problem with. It was like I don't care what your message is. It's just give me a message. The
Mhm.
message was I don't know what's going on. Anyway, well, that's it for news and reviews for this week. There was a lot more, but we gotta move on because we got a big show ahead. We'll be back on the Auto Guide show brought to you by eBay Motors in a second with Greg to talk more cleaning products because it's getting, well, it's not getting, we're in the midst of that time of year.
Yeah.
And then Kyle will be back with me and we will be talking to two people from the Mazda MX-5 Cup Series. Then I'll call them on to talk F1 and we'll wrap it up with what's ahead. Swapping out your tires? There's nothing like it. With eBay, you'll find the feel you're looking for, from smooth highway rides to grip for rough terrain. Get all the tires you need at prices you'll love. eBay, things people love. Welcome back. We once again have Greg on to talk about products. This week it looks like it's wash mitts.
That's right. The ones I've been using are these Armor All wash mitts. I like the Armor All product line. I think they're tried and true. We've probably all been using them for years, and there's some ups and downs, but these are good ones. And again, most of their products are pretty consistent. What I like about these is they're good for getting into kind of like the crevices of cars. They're great, obviously, just for cleaning the sheet metal for sure. But I have like sort of like the trunk, when you open it up, there's this kind of cavity and just stuff gets in there from like the flower pollen that's blowing around, leaves from apparently last fall that I'm just discovering. Things like this are good to just kind of get in there and make it, much more meticulous. So that's what I like to use these things for. And, car wash rags, microfibers, you can get those basically anywhere, including eBay perhaps. Those are great, but to me, these are good for some specific use cases, just like that, getting in the hard to reach places.
Yeah, I only use wash mitts when washing cars. It's just so much easier, and it covers more, and I just find it better. It's a go-to, I think, that everyone needs to have if they're seriously going to wash their car. I mean, if they're just going to throw some dish soap on it and use some paper towel, well, that's different. But those who really want to wash their car, yeah, wash mitts are great.
They do a nice job of sort of bringing out the shine without having to do anything extra too, just because it's literally connected to your hand. So you can get in there, kind of give it almost like a quasi kind of like a wax motion. And I found that does, a really nice job of helping you kind of get like I actually think this is the time of year when your car gets really grimy, just because there's so much stuff blowing around. In the summer, you don't really have leaves. You don't have these like sort of pollen clouds that are everywhere. And that accumulates. And my sort of rolling test bed for this segment is my 06 Charger, and it gets grimy. And it's Inferno Red Crystal Clear Coat, which was a very hot color back in 06, but it shows the dirt. So you really have to kind of get in there and scrub a dub to make it look how you want it to look, not just like an old car.
Yeah, it's a good point about the spring. Everyone thinks fall, winter's the worst, and they're terrible too. But spring, you got all those little sort of buds falling off different trees too as they pollinate. And yeah, it's right now the front of my house is a mess, and all the cars are completely underneath all these little maple things. And yeah, and having a proper mitt really helps getting, like you said, those pieces off. And some of them will stick to the paint. And then if you want to sort of like scrub harder or scrape a bit, it's nice having a mitt because it's not, a hard edge or even your nail scratching into the paint.
Yeah, you have a little bit extra confidence, and it's obviously when you're wearing this mitt, it makes you think, hey, any watch I may have on, I should take off. And if you have like a ring on your hand or something, hey, this is covering it up. Whereas with, just a rag or a microfiber, who knows what might catch on what. So again, it's really, this specific one is like a 2-in-1, but Armor All makes a few of these. So, I think it's a good approach to making your car look the way you want it to look.
All right. Well, that sounds great. Thank you for joining us again this week. We will have you back next week to talk some more products, maybe continue the car care theme as everyone gets ready for summer and the warm weather and wanting to, wash the car once and have it shine for a week. Whereas right now you're lucky if it stays clean for a day.
That's true. Summer is actually a good time, I think, just to wash your car. It's very therapeutic, right? So yeah.
All right. Well, we'll see you next week and enjoy your week. Until then, so long.
See you later, Mike.
Picture this. You're in the garage, your favorite room in the house, and you're tuning up your engine with parts you found on eBay. Every piece is just locking perfectly into place. You step back to admire your work, hands covered in grease, and because you're committed to driving that thing further than the odometer can handle, you start to think to yourself, you know what, I could probably also use some new brakes, some shocks and struts, and this baby deserves a new air filter. So you head right back to eBay. You can find any part you need there. It's unreal. From wipers and headlights to cold air intakes, exhaust systems, and even that turbo you've had on your mind. eBay is the stocked garage of your dreams. And you've got eBay Guaranteed Fit. Because eBay knows DIY fixes can be major, and mods are always intense, so you need to know that these parts guaranteed to fit every time before you dive in wrench first. And in the off chance you order a part and it doesn't fit, send it back, simple as that. You know what you love more than the car itself is driving it. You're serious when it comes to engine maintenance, and you're locked in when you're headed into a build. And that's exactly why you start with eBay, minor fix or complete overhaul. You want to get your ride back on the road, and you've got eBay Guaranteed Fit. So eBay created My Garage, where all you have to do is add your ride's info and get the exact parts that fit. When you see the green check, you're a click away from that part clicking perfectly into place. So now that you know all that, imagine standing at that open garage door looking at your car you love more than anything, knowing that anything is possible. Whether it's keeping it on the road forever or turning it into something that's never been on the road before. Because with eBay, your garage just got a whole lot bigger. Get all the parts you need at prices you love, guaranteed to fit every time. eBay, things people love. All right, we just spoke to the team principal, and now we have two of these star drivers. If you could just introduce yourselves and what you're currently doing.
Hi, my name's Heather Hadley. I am a race car driver competing in the Woodland Mazda MX-5 Cup Series. I'm also a part of the First to the Finish Amazon docu-series, and that was filming the 2024 racing season, and I'm currently competing in MX-5 Cup now. So competing with Hendrix Motorsports, my third year with this series with 3 different teams. So yeah, that's basically me.
Hi, I'm Sally Motz. I am also a Whelen Mazda MX-5 Cup driver. This is my second year in the series. Last year, we were on First to the Finish, and that was my rookie year. I was on Spark Performance, and now I'm on JTR Motorsports. And yeah, we're going for some bigger goals this year. So just kind of getting a handle on things and gaining my confidence in the series. So really excited to see what we can do by the end of the year.
It's great to have both of you. Mike, you want to throw the first question, or should I?
You can go ahead.
Okay. All right. So we briefly met both of you at the premiere because you were taking this on the road, talking to everyone about the show. And I have to say, I haven't watched the back half, but the first half is just full of excitement, right? Like MX-5 has such close racing, and that comes through pretty clearly in this. So I imagine there are a lot of challenges with coming into a series, especially, Sally, it was your first year during the show. But what other challenges were there with having a film crew follow you around for the whole season?
Oh man, it was you need to watch the rest of the show because that's where it gets good, okay? The first couple of races, I will tell you, I definitely was a rookie and I definitely made some mistakes where I'm like watching it and I'm like just cringing, like, why did I do that? Like, what is going on there? But like having a film crew, especially going to Daytona for my first race of the season, you know, going under the tunnel and like coming out and being like, oh my God, this is Daytona. This is the iconic Daytona. And I'm actually racing here. And I show up, there's like three sets of like film crews, right? So there's just like an absurd amount of people with cameras, mics, like they have these big battery packs on and they're like here to shoot us, you know? And like, so we meet up with the team for the first time. We shake everybody's hand. Everyone's super nice. And then they're like, all right, we're going to mic you up now. And I'm like, what does that mean? Like, what do you mean you're going to mic us up? And so like they, you know, drop the thing down our shirt. They put the little thing right here. And so we're walking around with like a battery pack and we're mic'd up. And so I'm just like, this is so weird. Like I've never been mic'd up before. So anyone I go and talk to, I'm like, hey, by the way, I'm mic'd up. And like, they're like, wait, what do you mean? Like, well, now I got to like watch what I say. And it's such a weird experience. And so I'm driving and like, you can't get away from the cameras even when you're racing because they're all in your car. Right. And so my whole thing, even at Daytona, was just like to focus. But towards the end of the year, I actually used it as like motivation. And it kind of became a thing of like, well, this is going to be seen by a lot of people, so I might as well do well, right?
Most of the time it felt kind of like you were in like a therapy session where they're constantly asking you about your feelings. And that was, I think, the biggest thing that I wasn't used to was like coming off track and there's immediately a camera and you're kind of having to like face those emotions immediately and, you know, recognize exactly what happened on track, you know, try to recall everything and, you know, just get like in control of your emotions and then be able to like communicate them. And I think that was the strangest thing for me. Like
that's actually an important point you make because they are kind of in your face all year, many weekends. So it really helps if you can get along with the crew members because they're probably talking to you just as much as your team is during that year. Does the show properly capture the absolute chaos that it is racing at Daytona in specifically the MX-5 Cup? Because those races are crazy to watch.
Yeah, I mean, it's hard to fully capture like everything that's going on and all the chaos, all the emotions, because Daytona is such a unique experience. It's just by far our biggest weekend all year. We have a lot of media going on throughout the entire week, and you know, there's so much to do. It's just a very kind of overwhelming experience, but in all the good ways. I think they definitely did a really, really good job of portraying, all the feelings and emotions and the pressures of racing at Daytona on that big weekend. But of course, I think that there's, always going to be more that doesn't actually make the final cut. So, yeah, kind of both. But I think that they did do a really, really good job of like making it dramatic. The drama between Sally and I, like, obviously they lean into that a little bit, but there are very real emotions going on between the both of us that weekend, because the pressure is just so high.
What style of racing do you prefer? Something like Daytona where you could be 4 or 5 wide and could gain or lose several positions within half a lap, or something that's more of a traditional track where it's just you versus 1 or 2 drivers at a time?
Yeah, that's a great question. I actually prefer tracks like Barber and Mid-Ohio that are like road courses that are normal. It's not a super speedway and it's not a street course, because we raced at St. Pete after Daytona, and it was kind of like we start the season off with Daytona and it's just kind of an irregular race because it's a super speedway and anybody could win if you like set it up right. Then we go into St. Pete and it's a street course, and I'm like, oh my God, there's like walls everywhere and we're racing through the city, which is pretty cool, I'm not gonna lie. But when I'm in my element is when we're at like normal road courses. I don't know, I like it better, and I like the battles because it's like the racecraft is different. It's just what I'm used to because I came from karting. So I don't know, I just prefer it for some reason. So yeah.
So you mentioned karting, and I know both of you have a lot of experience in karting. And then also there was talk about sim rigs, right? Like, as with your season being so spread out and you sometimes have weeks or even almost 2 months in between races, how, I guess it's a 2-part question and you can answer whoever wants to first. How important do you find sim racing?
I think the sim is a really, really great way if you are like, if you're like wanting to get into racing, into motorsports, but you just don't know how. I've heard this from so many people. I've heard, that they live out in the middle of nowhere and there's no racetrack near them. And whatever the case may be, if they're, struggling to just financially, right, to buy your first go-kart and your first car, those are all challenges that, come with like just those like barriers to entry with motorsports. Obviously we have them pretty high where things are very, very expensive. And I think that, getting a sim is a really, really great way of taking care of the majority of that, like first kind of like front work, getting, really familiar with all the tracks and meeting people online and just kind of like developing that craft online. I've seen a lot of people, who are sim racers come to reality and get in a car and just do some testing. And it's like the transition is like seamless. It's like they have been racing cars their whole life and it's their first time ever. And so, I think that a lot of people can get decent at the sim if you just allow yourself to. Like, so many people just write it off like, I'm just bad at sim. And I was that person for a long time, but like, and I had like just the wheel attached to a desk with some pedals underneath for like years. And, I was able to get like decent at that for a while. Once I had like let myself, cause for so long I was just like, I'm bad at the sim and, just like wouldn't do it. But, over time, you kind of come to realize that it's a really, really great tool. And, once you kind of like just spend more time, you'll get better at it. And of course, like there's not going to be much like feel, obviously. There's no feel. And, as a driver personally, that I would consider myself more of like a feel driver. That is really hard for me. That's been like the toughest part is like, you're not actually not sitting in a car where you can feel kind of what's happening in the cockpit. Right. But once you kind of like get over that initial challenge and just kind of learn how to drive on the sim, which is a different type of driving, I think it's a really, really great tool. I recommend it to everyone. And I use it, in between all the races.
Like Heather's saying, there's not that much feel, obviously, unless you have a motion sim. But even then, I don't really like the motion sims just because they don't replicate the correct type of feelings of like the slip angle and everything. But you're having to feel through your brain, which is what I like to say. It sounds weird, but it's like you have no feel through the seat of your pants, but you're having to feel through your brain and understanding what the car's doing underneath you with absolutely no feel, just through the steering wheel, which is kind of funny because the MX-5 Cup cars in real life, they don't really have a ton of feel of like what's going on because there's rear bushings in the back that kind of cause it to be like, when you're new to the car, you'd say it's kind of numb. And I've heard people say it's like driving a boat almost, because it's just like the way that it takes a set, it's not like a spec Miata or even a spec MX-5 where like it's a super clear indication that the car's taking a set. So if you watch, for example, episode 6, okay, I'm at Road Atlanta and I crashed. I'm just gonna spoil it for you. I crashed all by myself. Turn five is just a freaking, I hate that corner. But the car had taken a set and I didn't realize that it took a set in the wrong direction. And so when I put I put power down, I went straight into the wall. And because I was so new, I didn't understand what was happening yet. And so I've really, really worked hard on the simulator because I don't know, you're driving through the wheel, which is kind of how it felt like for me in season 1, because I didn't really have that much seat time. I did towards the end, which is surprising why I did that on the last race, but it happens, right? No, I've really, really improved my feel of what's going on underneath me just through simulator practice, because it's such like a brain to eye connection. It's what you're seeing on the track or on the screen, and then what you're feeling through the steering wheel without any feeling of like actually feeling what the car's doing. So I actually have a teammate right now in JTR Motorsports. His name's Glenn McGee, and he won the iRacing World Championship in 2016, I think it is. And now he podiumed at St. Pete in real life in MX-5 Cup. He has the iRacing decal on his car, and like he is like the prime example of sim racer to real life racer. It's like Gran Turismo, but in real life, and he's my teammate, and he's really good. Like it's just impressive how much he learned on the sim. So I think I agree with Heather. It's like, you don't just discount it and be like, oh, I'm just not a good sim driver. Like it pretty much translates like a fair amount. I mean, in my opinion, I'd say.
We'll start with Heather. What are your goals and hopes for the second half of the season?
We've done really well with finding pace. I think it's now just a matter of getting those finishes, getting those results. We've had some things happen out of our control in, the beginning of this season that, there's nothing we can do about it. You can't change anything about it, but it does hurt our points. And that's kind of where, we're just kind of trying now to, at the end of the season, have some good, consistent results towards the front, get the points up. I don't know if you guys saw Daytona this year, but we had a 17-car pileup, which is our biggest wreck in MX-5 Cup history. And me and Sally are both involved in that. And you look closely, I'm like spinning like directly in the middle of it, like doing like a full 360. Good times. But so there's just a few things that have happened that have like kind of just hurt us, our potential of where we should have finished at both St. Pete and Daytona. And Barber as well, where we had really, really good pace. We just had some things happen in practice and in qualifying that hurt our kind of initial performance out the gate. And then, so we were kind of compensating in both of the races, and without much testing, that was also difficult as well. So I think hopefully just towards the end of the year, having no issues, no problems, getting good points, finishing towards the front, and getting a podium. I'd like to get a podium.
Maybe you'll do it at Canadian Tire Motorsports Park.
Yeah.
Don't call it most.
We don't. Yeah, we refer to it as the old name still up here. That's a fast track, so that's a good track to have pace at.
It's so fun.
Yeah, it's one you got to have confidence in your car for sure, because you're flinging it down some blind corners quite often.
Hopefully you guys didn't watch my race there last year. It was pretty rough for me. It ended pretty rough for me, but
so
more room to improve.
Sally, same question.
So I think kind of the same thing. Like I'm doing well with finding pace this year, like a lot better than last year. And I think that last year was just kind of like getting used to everything, because it's so crazy coming from like club racing to MX-5 Cup, where you have an autograph signing session, you only have 2 practice sessions, only 2. And then you're like, all right, now it's time to go qualify. And then we're right off into the races. And it's like, unless you didn't test, then you just have to like be able to adapt really fast and like just be able to switch your mindset and just jump into the car and be like, all right, I'm going to race now. And for me, I was really, really, really nervous last year. Even towards the end, I didn't show it as much, but I know you said you watched the first half of the show. I feel like I'm a different driver in the first half and the second half because I was so nervous. So this year, I'm just coming in with a lot more confidence because I kind of know what to expect. And I have a lot of seat time under the car. Like I have a whole season under my belt now. And I kind of just, now I'm with a different team, so I'm learning more. It's never, you never stop learning in this series, I'll tell you that. There's so many life lessons. Even Alex Bashura, my teammate last year, he's raced every single MX-5 Cup race for a really long time. They call him the Iron Man. And he learns every single race still. He still learns something. And so I feel like this year we have really kind of gotten a handle on the car and like my feel of the car. I feel like I've gotten really lucky this year because, like Heather said, Daytona crash happened. I was, I think, on the 6th row. So I was the second car to get shot into the wall. I had no, like, I couldn't do anything about it. It was so fast. But I did get to finish the race. I just drove around like this. Like my steering wheel was literally like 90 degrees to the left. So I was just like trying to manage and trying to finish to get points. And then at St. Pete, I did struggle with pace a little bit. But honestly, like I got hard charger twice. So I just kind of just stayed out of the trouble because at St. Pete, there's a lot of like, just be smart because you know people are going to just take themselves out or get taken out. I feel like I had decent pace, but I just really stayed out of trouble. And then Barber, I felt very, very confident. It rained. So we had another rain race. And we got the setup down pretty good. And Heather did too. Actually, we came up through the field like together, basically. That was a really fun race. I got a lot of confidence from that. And then, so now my sights are set on Mid-Ohio, which is actually my favorite track, which is really weird because it's just like in the middle of a cornfield. But it's, I don't know. I really like the track. It's super special to me. And I just think that this year is looking a lot more positive than last year in terms of like confidence and pace and just getting a feel for things. And honestly, the sim's helping a lot. So yeah.
Okay. Well, those are exciting. I mean, you still got a back half of the season, right, to pull these off. So we're gonna, I just have one final question actually before we wrap things up, because it's a question that I asked Shay and I want to ask both of you. There are more women on the grid this year. You're up to 6 now. And so with that and the show coming out, quick 60-second snippet of advice you would give to women who are looking to get a role in the motorsports career.
Yeah, I mean, if it's really, first of all, you just have to make sure that you really love it. It will test that. It's a very challenging sport, and it's male dominated, obviously, and that presents its own issues. But if you really, really love it, and there's true passion there, then I think that's really all you need to succeed. It's kind of like having that kind of consistent drive and asking a lot of questions. The worst you can get told is no. And, if you don't ask a question, you'll never know the answer. You'll never know kind of what the potential response could be. So, that's my advice, is just to keep asking questions, put yourself out there. But if you really do love it and have a passion for the sport, regardless of what that role might be, whether it's like more behind the scenes, being like an engineer, a mechanic, or a team manager, team owner, or a driver, we need more women in the sport. So go after it, please. And we're both here, Sally and I, as resources as well. If you want to ask us questions, if it's specifically pertaining to MX-5 Cup or sports car racing, anything like that, we're here for questions like those. Absolutely. So yeah.
I like that, taking on an ambassador role. Sally?
Yeah, no, I would agree with that. Like we are role models, and I feel like at Barber this race weekend, this is the first race since the show came out. I had so many people come up to me and say, hey, I watched the show. Like, I love what you guys are doing. Now my daughter wants to get into go-karting. And that is like part of the reason why we did this. And so it's kind of cool because we are seeing already a growth in the series itself, but not just the series, but like motorsports in general. There's so many more women race car drivers in motorsports right now than there has been at any point in time. So I think for us, like, we just need to keep encouraging them to come. And although it is male dominated, I think that could change in a couple decades. And like at some point it will be 50-50 on the grid, which I think is like, I would love to see that in my lifetime. But I just think like it can be discouraging to look at and be like, well, there's so many guys and not enough girls right now. Like, why would I join? Because I'm going to feel like I'm an outcast. But I think like my advice would be to, like, if you love it, just do it and get started in any way you can, and things will pick up for you as long as you keep your head in it. And honestly, you know, you can do anything you put your mind to. I overcame a lot last year, and it's in the show. So I would say, if I could do it, you can do it. And yeah, like Heather said, we need more girls, so bring it.
All right, the challenge has been laid. So
yeah. And now I need to give Mike my Prime login so that he can watch the show too. Hopefully Jeff Bezos is not listening. But yeah.
Yeah, no, it sounds great. Yeah, well, thanks for joining us. It was great talking to both of you and great insight. And Kyle and I will be at the race, we hope, this summer when you come up to Canada. So we'll be there cheering on from the stands. Well, I guess the fence. There's no real stands there.
The field.
But, yeah. And yeah, I'm totally biased because I live near here, but it's such a fun track. So I look forward to seeing the racing up there, and hopefully the whole field, because the more cars on that track, the more exciting it gets.
Yes. Well, come say hi to us at the autograph signing session, or come stop by the tent. I mean, you guys can sit in my car if you want. I don't know.
Don't promise us that. Awesome. Well, thank you again both for joining us for this, and yeah, good luck in Ohio.
Yep.
Yeah.
And we'll
Thank you
see
so
you in a
much.
couple months.
Yeah.
Bye.
Thank you. Thanks for having us.
Bye. All right, we have Colum back on the show with us. This week's been a little bit slower than last week, only because last week was absolutely chaos. And they're back racing this weekend. So maybe that's this, they just slow things down a bit.
Yeah, it's good because I guess less, news. We can dig into some of the details of the minutia here on Red Shirt Day, Vertical Scope.
Yeah,
apparently.
To match the F1. I should have worn my F1 shirt.
There you go.
So first news, Mr. Colum Pinto.
Yes, he's back. So, we chatted about him a little bit the last time. I think we should jump into a prediction. Do you think he'll do, better or worse than Tiguan, better or worse than Gasly, his teammate? I feel like, yeah, he'll probably do better than Tiguan, really do better than Gasly. Or really, they were kind of all the same. So,
I'd have to look at the numbers because I'm sure it backs it up, but I didn't feel like Tiguan was doing that poorly. It wasn't like smashing out every race like a certain Red Bull driver was, or dead last while his teammates first or anything.
No, he wasn't terrible, and that's the thing that his father posted on Instagram, basically showing his record versus Gasly's, and they were pretty similar. They're both like mediocre to blah, and so he was kind of saying, this isn't really like Tiguan's fault here, right? And to me, I think this is always the curse of like, if you move into Formula One, I mean, I know you take any seat you can get if you're trying to get in, right? But if you take a bad seat, you're never going to be seen as a great driver, right? So I look at a guy like Nick Heidfeld. Nick Heidfeld? No, that's not who I was thinking of. Formerly of Haas with Magnussen. Why am I blanking on this?
Grotius?
No, not Grotius. No, the other guy. It's not Nick. It's the other tall.
Oh, Nico
Rosberg, right? No. Nico Hulkenberg. Oh my goodness,
Yes.
This is painful. Nico Hulkenberg. So like he was, if he had better cars, he would have a much more illustrious career. Right? He always got in a bad car, always, and so his career is just like mediocre at best, right? But like he could have totally been a Bottas. He could have been a second string on a great team, locking it down, and it just never happened for him. So will Colapinto wind up something similar? I don't know. It's such a risk to move into a mediocre car.
Yeah, with Tiguan, like, we don't know any of the details because they'll never tell us, but it could have been a short-term prove yourself deal. It could have, we talked about this, I think, just last week, how we don't know what's behind closed doors. Could be a personality thing, could be a work thing. Who knows? But to your point about trying to get a seat, you're right. I wonder how many of these guys are like I will never be the superstar, but this is my opportunity to, just get in and test it out and make it, because so many of these young guys this year, especially, jumped up that just took that seat. It's different if they're putting you somewhere like Behrman, who everyone figures will have a career and he's on an actual path, like race for Haas, and then, end up probably on a Ferrari powered team at some point. But these guys who just jump into like the bottom team, like a Zhao, for instance, like he came in with his money and he probably knew like this is my spot and I'll last as long as I can and then move on. But all these kids that just jumped up this year, and like I said, some of them are on teams like,
it'll be a churn, kind of like, remember back when there was like Spiker and like the Lotus teams and there was a whole bunch of Caterham. It's just like they were just, new teams, new owners every year, just churning through both everything, right? And you just feel like that was a bit of a chaos, and we're kind of that with drivers right now rather than teams. So I don't envy them in a sense, but at the same time, get your magic ticket to show off and see if you can make some waves.
And shout out to BWT for surviving multiple teams and still being in the sport. Like some of the drivers disappears, they come back on another team. They're determined to be on someone's car.
I guess so. Well, they love Formula One, so I guess we should love them too then.
This isn't a Formula One car.
It is not. It's not. So we touched on this again last week, but I wanted to kind of regroup because it just happened. This is the whole Verstappen was out at the Nürburgring racing under a pseudonym. But that didn't really help because the car says Verstappen.com on it. So, but apparently, funny. So I've done some digging in this because I knew very little about this. So he actually owns this like Verstappen.com racing team. And so he's actually bringing drivers up and training them and sort of trying to build a path for other drivers. And part of this philosophy is all around getting sim racers to become pro drivers, which we've heard stories of this before, in the industry, et cetera. But he really believes that this is, especially in Europe, the whole karting industry has become such a huge industry. It's so expensive that basically you have to be a millionaire to basically progress through karting. And so he's sort of saying, well, look, you could actually take sim racing, although sim rigs are very expensive if you're buying good ones. So they're basically, that's another alternate way to potentially get drivers through. And so he's trying to do this. He was there apparently supporting this. Thierry Vermeulen is his name, who's one of his drivers, Verstappen's drivers. He's like on the team. Funny enough, Thierry Vermeulen's father is Max Verstappen's manager. So there's like a whole mix in here of names and people getting along. So, but the interesting story is that from his little test, which will apparently, I think, evolve into there's two things. One, the rumor is he will race at the Nürburgring 24-hour race, and he needed to do this to get his license for that series. The other sort of story is that, look, he was actually there just to help out this team and basically give them some pointers, help shake down the car, do other stuff. So we'll see what really turns out to be true. But during his, little practice session out, apparently he set the lap time for GT3 cars at the Nürburgring. So you were researching this as well. Unofficially, yes, correct.
Yes,
correct.
Because it wasn't officially timed, but it said it was faster. And I mean, we know, I'm sure like they're not making that up, but we don't know anything about this car. Like who knows how it was set compared to how it would be set in race trim and all that.
Also true, they could totally goose it, right? And just, apparently, I guess Verstappen was actually asked in the lead up to the race this weekend. It was one of the interview questions said like, "Oh, can you confirm that rumor is true?" And he basically said, "Yeah, it is."
Yeah, he said we weren't being timed, but yes, I was faster. I mean, it wouldn't be too far-fetched because Verstappen's Verstappen. He seems to be able to race anything. I mean, look at the car he's racing now compared to anyone who tries to get the second one. And he absolutely loves sim racing. I mean, he sim races all the time, and he sim races these cars a lot. So it wouldn't be too much of a stretch to have a guy who's got, ridiculous talent, one of the best in the sport, that's practiced forever in this style car in sim racing to just get in and rip a lap.
Yeah, well, he said he's never driven the Nürburgring before, so he was thrilled. But he said he has driven it thousands of laps in sim racing, and he actually was saying like he sees how there are little differences, a little different curve here, things aren't exactly what they are in sim racing. So, that's Interesting. So, we'll see if it transpires into anything legit in the future, if he's that winds up in a GT car or racing Le Mans with Alonso or something. Who knows?
I doubt he'll be in Nürburgring, but Le Mans.
Yeah.
Who knows? So
Same.
Next.
Colton Herta, IndyCar, things are looking decent for him, but it looks like sort of the latest stories, because he's was seen as one of the front runners for the Cadillac Formula One team. And it kind of sounds like his window of opportunity is moving away from him quickly, and just that I guess he doesn't have the super license points, and they're not exactly sure how long it's going to take to get them. And Cadillac basically can't, sign a deal with this promise that that's going to happen, right? So it sounds like he's probably not going to wind up in the F1 seat. So we'll see who does.
26. I mean, maybe Cadillac will be Daniel, Sergio. Guys want to come race for one season? Just, put a no name in there that you don't expect much from, especially with a brand new team, but just get some interest. And then when Herta finally gets his points, you can jump in. I mean, I don't think I'd want to race for Cadillac. Well, I guess you'd want to race if you just get the offer, period. But
sure.
The first year is going to be probably ugly, and the second year probably will be much better. But I bet by third year, and then when they get their own engine down the road, I don't think they're joining to be mediocre. I think GM's going to throw a lot of money at it, but that's happened with Toyota and Honda, and they never really succeeded. Honda almost did; they left just a little too early. So
yeah, but if you look at GM, I love their sports car heritage, right? Like Le Mans, they pushed, they showed all the Europeans, right, with their cheap Corvettes. They started showing up and just trouncing everybody else. So they have a history of doing this, and if they put the success, I think guys like Mark Royce at the I know he's not running the I guess the motorsports division of General Motors, but he's so involved in on the executive side, and he's just such an enthusiast that you just feel like he's also kind of a scary dude, and I just feel like he's going to be there, sort of Lawrence Strolling, make this happen, right? We want to win. So
you're right. The Chevy program's been great. The Corvette had decades almost of success, but the Cadillac Le Mans program has not had so much success.
No,
it's been there twice, and I mean it's still there now, and they're working on it. Maybe it'll get better this year. Although the prototypes for Daytona, the IMSA side, they did pretty well. They won 24 hours a couple times.
Well, I go back to the old, when Cadillac raced at Le Mans years ago. I know what you're talking about. They were also racing the Corvettes then, and that they were divided interests, and the Corvettes were never going to get the Cadillacs were not going to get the love, right? It was just that was just a side project, and no one really cared. And the important thing was keep the Corvettes winning, right? That was the bread and butter. That's where everybody cared about. So
yeah, I think it was the Corvettes are doing so well, so they thought, hey, if we build a Cadillac and don't use a Corvette engine for some reason, we'll do fine. And then they everyone at that point had gone closed cockpit, and they were still open. Yeah,
North Star V8s, Mike. North Star V8s. That was it. I remember it was branded all over the place.
Maybe they should have put some water on their brakes.
There, excellent segue. So apparently, after the Miami GP, the FIA thoroughly looked into the McLaren cars, and it's come out that they are totally cleared, and that they're not spraying water inside their tires or whatever to cool them off on the track, because that was the allegation. I don't know if you saw the picture of Zach Brown
taking the tire water.
Yeah, tire water. I love that. That's good. He knows how to play the game and stick it, because I got you can tell these other guys who run the teams, like Christian Horner, they're all playing a game. How can we get you off your edge, right? Get you thinking about something else, unsettle you. So he can play that game too. So good for him.
Yeah, just quickly before I wrap up, because we're going on a bit here. I read online someone that is a bit into engineering and whatnot, and they had a detailed description of how much water would be needed to cool the brakes for a whole race to really make any sort of difference. And it was gallons the car would have to hold. They're where are they hiding this? And why would they put all that extra weight on their car for the race? It just doesn't make sense. I mean, if you use something besides water, it's not like you're just doing little spritz here and there. Those brakes are crazy high.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah.
Qualifying, it could work. Even a sprint race potentially, but a whole race?
Yeah, maybe the whole point was just to try. Well, first of all, just anything. But maybe they're also just grasping at straws. They're just we'll make some allegation, we'll make something up, and then regardless, get the FIA to like give the car a deep dive because you might find something else. So
Yeah, exactly. Might make up one story to hopefully, find
another.
We don't. Yeah.
Yeah, I'm always the opinion that people always say in racing, if you're not cheating, you're losing, right? So they're all cheating. You just so forget, everybody should have their high horse. They're all cheating in a certain way, but who's cheating the most creatively and who gets caught, right? So
and it's not even cheating. It's they get the rule book and they think, okay, how can we reinterpret this or bend this rule? It's not like they're blatantly saying it says we can't do this, let's do that. It's well, if we do this, it doesn't say we can't do this, and and then they have to make a rule about it. Like we've had double diffusers and we've had load floor violations and baggy wings and all sorts of things.
British common law, like, and it's like perfect, right? Versus the French where they make a rule for everything. British common law, it's like you don't list all the things you can't do. You just list a few, and then you extrapolate off of that, and then that's what the legal system's for. So we'll see as it goes on. But I'm very curious to see. With as you said, the bending, if there's any truth to the McLaren / Mercedes rear wing flexi stuff, that's supposed to come out in Spain, but because we're on the verge of triple header here, so I'm excited to see all that and maybe watch great qualifying in Monaco, but not so great racing, but it'll still be good qualifying. So
all right, well, thanks for joining us, and we'll have you back next week, and we'll talk about the details of this week's race and probably what's coming up next.
Sounds great. Take care, Mike.
See ya. All right, we will quickly wrap this up as it's been another long but very, very entertaining and content-full episode, right, Kyle? It's top quality material.
It's always fun. Yeah.
So this week, I stayed home. No, I didn't. I was out driving that Tiguan that we already talked about. But then when I got back, I actually got it early. I've been driving the Ford Mustang Mach-E Rally. And I don't want to spoil it. I had a lot of fun filming it yesterday. Let's just say it appeals to me way more than I thought it would.
Oh, interesting. Because I really like the regular Mach-E. So
me too. And I thought this was just a ridiculous exercise. But then when you see what it can do, and at 60,000 in the US with destination, it's like, what else at 60,000, gas or otherwise, does everything that thing does? And there isn't really a like
anything.
STI. Yeah, the STI and Evos are dead, and that would be the only thing. But they also don't have 700 pound-feet of torque. So, yeah.
Okay, interesting. So, I was also on a quick trip. I think I briefly mentioned this on our last episode. I went to stunning Vancouver Island in British Columbia to drive the Hyundai Ioniq 9, the new flagship. You'll hear about it next week. And then I've been driving the Acura ADX at home for the week, which is an all-new vehicle. They're a small SUV, and I have a lot of thoughts, but I'll share those later. Both on different trips. Mike, you head to Road America to drive a whole bunch of cars for the Mama Spring Rally, and I am sad that I'm missing out on it. But I will be at Toyota's head office in Plano, where we're going to see, well, all those things we talked about on this episode, and then some other things that may or may not be surprises.
Yeah, you didn't know what you're going to see or drive. I mean, you still fully don't, but at least you got an idea. There's some vehicles that could be there that you're like, oh, hey, I could drive that. My drive partner this week had some thoughts on the ADX too, so I'm curious to hear yours in the coming weeks, and I need to try it myself. And for those who don't know, MAMA is the Midwest Automotive Media Association, so it's a bunch of car reviewers like us, and we drive a whole bunch of cars, and there's some there that no one's really had access to yet, so I'm looking forward to testing them out, and quite a few I've never had access, so yeah, I'm looking forward to it. I guess that wraps up the Auto Guide Show brought to you by eBay Motors until next week. And next week, we will be back with some more reviews and news. We'll maybe be able to chat a bit about our trips, and we'll have someone on who is one of my favorite car collectors because he likes obscure one-off oddball cars even more than I do, and he has the means to collect them. So I cannot wait for that. I wish we could just spend the whole hour talking to him, but we'll get to that.
Maybe we will.
Yeah. So news and reviews, that's it. Moving on.
Yeah. All right.
So until next week, it's been fun, and we'll see you then.
So long, everybody.
Picture this. You're halfway through a DIY car fix, tools scattered everywhere, and boom, you realize you're missing a part. It's okay because you know whatever it is, it's on eBay. They've got everything: brakes, headlights, cold air intakes, whatever you need, and it's guaranteed to fit, which means no more crossing your fingers and hoping you order the right thing. All the parts you need at the prices you'll love, guaranteed fit every time. eBay, things people love.